Welcome and thank you for being here. There's no need to do anything at all, simply allow my voice to be a soft companion as you begin to drift toward the quiet story of a city built in the middle of a vast, shimmering lake. A story where the reasons for war are as strange and as beautiful as the feathers on a warrior's shield. Tonight, there are no complexities to solve, only soft and simple threads of a story for you to follow if you wish a story that begins under the watchful eye of two volcanoes. Before we drift too far, if you feel a connection to this place, you're welcome to leave a quiet like or subscribe. Think of it not as a task, but as leaving a soft footprint in the sand before you continue your journey inward. And if you wish, you might leave a quiet comment, letting me know the name of your city and what time it is for you right now, as you listen. And now, with the lights turned down low, and your body feeling heavy and warm, let's simply close our eyes and arrive at the beginning of our journey. Your world is built on water. You are standing on a causeway, a wide, solid stone road that stretches across the surface of Lake Texcoco. On one side, the fresh water of the inner lagoon laps gently against the stone. On the other, the brackish, saltier water of the main lake shimmers under a high, thin sun. In the distance, the twin peaks of the volcanoes, Popocatépetl and Tecuhtli, are sketched against the blue sky, looking like sleeping giants. But you rarely look out there. Your gaze, like every earnest, is always drawn inward. Inward to the island, Tenochtitlan. A city that shouldn't exist, a metropolis floating on a lake. You live here. This is your home. You take a slow walk along the causeway, your sandals making a soft, rhythmic slap against the stone. Canoes, long and narrow, glide past you in the canals that serve as the city's main avenues. Some are piled high with bright red tomatoes and green chili peppers. Others carry stern-faced merchants with loads of cotton textiles. One canoe, moving slowly and purposefully, is filled with something less glamorous, human waste, a detail that most people ignore, but it's why your streets are remarkably, almost impossibly clean. Future visitors from other continents, used to tossing their garbage into the street, would be frankly astonished by your city's hygiene. Your home isn't just one big island. It's a patchwork of reclaimed land and artificial islands called China Palms. These are the famous floating gardens, though they don't truly float. They are woven grids of reeds and branches, piled high with rich mud dredged from the lake bed, anchored to the bottom by willow trees planted at their corners. They are fantastically fertile. From these floating rectangles of earth, your people pull in multiple harvests a year, feeding the population that no one can quite agree on. Even the storytellers of the future will argue about it, some claiming 200,000 souls live here, others insisting it's more. To you, it just feels like everyone. As you reach the edge of the city proper, the calm of the causeway gives way to a gentle hum of activity. The air smells of wood smoke, damp earth, and the sweet perfume of thousands of flowers. Flowers are everywhere. They are woven into the hair of the women you pass. They spill from baskets in the marketplace, and they are planted in pots on the flat roofs of the adobe houses. It is a city obsessed with beauty. You wander into the Tlatelolco market, the economic heart of the empire. It's an explosion of sound and color. Here you can find anything. Jade and turquoise from the far south, brilliant green quetzal feathers from the cloud forests, obsidian from the mountains, jaguar pelts, gold, silver, pottery of every shape and size. It's all so orderly. Each product has its own section, and stern judges wander the aisles, ready to settle any dispute with unwavering fairness. But in the center of it all, dominating the skyline, is the thing that defines your existence. The Temple Omea, the Great Temple. It is a massive, stepped pyramid, the temples sitting side by side at its peak. One is painted blue and white for the rain god Talago. The other is a stout, intimidating reed and bark for your patron deity, the god of the sun and of war, Hytistiputik. It is a man-made mountain, a staircase to the heavens. It is here at the top of these steps that the empire's most sacred duty is performed. You've heard the stories your whole life. The sun is a warrior, engaged in a constant battle against the darkness of night. Every morning he rises victorious, but the fight weakens him. He needs nourishment. He needs energy. And the most potent energy, the most sacred offering, is the one thing your civilization is built to provide. You see a group of young men, their hair tied in a distinctive top knot that marks them as warriors in training, jogging past in perfect formation. Their bodies are lean and strong, their faces serious. They are practicing for a war, but not a war as other cultures might understand it. Not a war for land or for gold or for total domination. It's something else entirely. Something stranger, more poetic, and in its own way, much more personal. A war of flowers, with a certainty that runs as deep as the roots of the willow trees in the lake, that a new season for this special kind of war is about to begin. You feel the warmth of that sun on the back of your neck. It's a pleasant, life-giving heat, the kind that makes the maize grow tall in the china pans and warms the dark stone of the city's plazas. But to you it is not just a star. It's not a mindless ball of fire in the sky. It is him, Hytistaputic, the hummingbird of the south, your patron, your god, your divine cosmic warrior. Every single night, as the sun dips below the horizon, he does not rest. He enters the underworld and begins a perilous journey, fighting the forces of darkness, the moon and the stars, who are his own jealous siblings in the great cosmic story. If he fails, even once, the sun will not rise. The world will be plunged into an eternal, cold night, and the skeletal star demons, the Titsamite, will descend to devour the last of humanity. You've seen depictions of them. They are not pleasant. This isn't a guess. It's a known fact, a truth as solid as the pyramid that stands in the center of your world. Because this world you inhabit is a fragile thing. The old priests have the calendars, the sacred books made of bark paper. They tell the story of the suns that came before, 4 of them. For previous creations, each with its own sun, its own people, each ending in a cataclysm. The first world, the jaguar sun, was consumed by ravenous jaguars. The second, the wind sun, was scoured from the earth by a great hurricane. The third, the rain sun, was destroyed by a rain of fire. The fourth, the water sun, was lost to a world-ending flood. You are living in the 5th age, the 5th sun, and your people, the Mexica, have been given the most sacred and terrifying duty of all, to make sure this one lasts. And that great celestial battle is exhausting work. Every morning, when Hytistaputic emerges victorious in the east, he is weary. He is drained. He needs nourishment to continue his journey across the sky. He is thirsty. So what do you give a god to quench his thirst? What is the most precious substance in the universe? It is not water, nor the fermented juice of the agave plant. It is Chalkai-Huatel, the precious water, the sacred liquid of life itself that flows within every human being. The heart, the vessel of that liquid, is the most potent offering, a concentration of divine energy that can fuel a god. This is the central bargain of your existence, a cosmic pact. Your people offer up this precious energy, and in return, the sun continues to move, the world continues to turn, and the apocalypse is held at bay for one more day. It's a system of beautiful, terrifying reciprocity. Now, the storytellers of a future age will argue endlessly about this. They will read the accounts of the strange men in metal armor who arrived on your shores, men who saw this practice and, not understanding the cosmic stakes, described it with words like savage and barbaric. These future historians will debate the numbers. Were the offerings a constant, daily river, as some accounts claim, or were they performed on specific, high holy days, a more focused and symbolic act? Some scholars will argue that the sheer scale described by the conquerors was a deliberate exaggeration, a way to justify their own destructive actions. The truth is, the logistics of it all remain a point of intense academic debate. It's a mystery that haunts the ruins of your great city. But for you here and now, it is not a debate. It is the simple, observable truth. The sun rises because you help it rise. Every beat of the great serpent's kind drum that echoes from the top of the Templar Mayor is a reminder of this duty. Every plume of copal incense that drifts through the city streets is a prayer for the sun's strength. This understanding colors everything. It's why your merchants trade for the sharpest obsidian. It's why your farmers set aside a portion of their harvest for the temple priests. And it's why those young men you saw earlier are training with such ferocious intensity. They are not preparing to conquer a foreign land for its resources. They are not fighting for a king's glory. They are training for a holy mission of procurement. Because you can't just offer any life force to the gods. That would be an insult. It must be the best, the most worthy. And that kind of offering cannot be found among your own people. It must be acquired. It must be captured from a worthy, honorable opponent. And to get it, you need a very, very special kind of war. So you need a war. But the word itself, even to you, feels clumsy. It's a heavy, blunt instrument. When you hear the word war in the stories of other people, you picture something ugly and chaotic. Mud, screams, cities burned to the ground, entire populations put to the sword. A messy, desperate, all-or-nothing struggle for survival. That is not what this is. Let's try to redefine the word. Forget conquest. Forget territory. Forget plunder. This is a war where the goal is not to end your enemy's life, but to preserve it with the utmost care, at least for a little while. The aim is not to kill, but to capture. Specifically, to capture the most elite, the most celebrated warriors your opponents have to offer. This is a Zokiatobo, a flower war. The name itself is a poem. It sounds so gentle, so utterly at odds with the concept of battle. But in your worldview, the connection is profound. A warrior in their prime, dressed in their magnificent regalia of feathers and jade, is seen as a beautiful blooming flower. The battlefield itself, alive with these brilliantly colored soldiers, is a garden. And the ultimate purpose of this battle, the offering of a brave heart, is the most sacred flower all blossoming for the gods. Beautiful, and ultimately meant to be picked just like a flower. These wars are a constant, low-level hum in the background of your civilization. They are not cataclysmic events that shake the foundations of the empire. They are more like a scheduled season, a recurring, sacred obligation. They are state-sanctioned, prearranged, ritualistic conflicts. Think of it less like a war, and more like the deadliest, most high-stakes sporting event imaginable. The official story for why these wars began is one every child knows. A long time ago, a terrible famine swept the land. The crops failed, the rains did not come, and the people starved. The priests in the great ruler Mount Azuma I consulted the gods, and the message was clear: they were displeased. They were hungry. A wise and powerful advisor, a man named Tlak, whose name is whispered with reverence, proposed a radical solution. Instead of waiting for disaster to strike again, they should create a permanent system to keep the gods satisfied. They would institutionalize warfare with their neighbors not for land, but for a steady, reliable source of sacred offerings. And for a long time the storytellers of the future will accept this version. It fits the narrative of a deeply religious society. But of course, like all things in history, it's probably more complicated than that. Historians will argue for centuries about the true purpose of the Flower Wars. Was it really all about religion? Some will point out that it was an incredibly effective military training program. How do you keep your elite jaguar and eagle warrior societies in peak fighting condition during times of relative peace? You can't let them get soft. A flower war is the perfect solution. A live fire exercise against a worthy opponent, a chance to hone their skills in capturing enemies without the immense cost and risk of a full-scale war of annihilation. Others will argue it was a form of political theater, a tool of intimidation. By engaging in these perpetual, ritualized conflicts with city-states like Tlaxcala, Huejotzingo, or Cholula, your Triple Alliance was constantly reminding them who was in charge. It was a way to bleed them of their best warriors, to keep them off balance and subordinate, all under the unassailable justification of religious duty. It's a bit of a power move, really. A way of saying, we don't need to conquer you, but we can. And we'll harvest your best and bravest whenever our gods demand it. The debate over whether this was primarily a religious rite, a training exercise, or a political strategy is a conversation that will never truly end. For you, though, these arguments are meaningless. It is all of these things at once, woven together. The gods must be fed, the army must be strong, and the empire must project its power. The flower war serves all purposes. It is a sacred duty, a practical necessity, and a political reality. The chaos of a real war is replaced by a set of rigid, almost gentlemanly rules. The battles take place on specially chosen sacred fields, known as Cuauht Lali. The objective is clear to everyone involved. And success is not measured by how many of the enemy you kill, but by how many you can bring back home, alive, unblemished, ready to become the honored guests of your city. So, how does one of these peculiar wars actually begin? It's not with a thunderous declaration of hatred or a surprise attack at dawn. That would be uncivilized. No, it starts with a conversation, a very polite, very formal, and very chilling invitation. Imagine you are standing in the great plaza of Tenochtitlan. The air is still, the sun is high. A procession emerges from the royal palace. At its head are the ambassadors. These are not gruff, battle-scarred warriors. They are older men, nobles, chosen for their eloquence and their imposing presence. They are dressed in the finest embroidered cloaks, their words as carefully chosen as the threads in their garments. They are flanked by priests, their long, matted hair a sign of their ascetic devotion, their hands holding bags of copal incense. This diplomatic party will travel for days, not in secret but openly, along the trade routes that connect the great cities of the valley. Their destination is one of your rivals. Their four enemies, a future age might call them. Let's say they are heading to Tlaxcala, a fierce and stubbornly independent city-state to the east. The Tlaxcala NS are your equals in bravery and skill, which makes them the perfect opponents. There is no honor in capturing a coward after all. When the ambassadors arrive at the gates of Tlaxcala, they are not met with arrows. They are met with ceremony. They are officially welcomed into the city, escorted to the ruler's court, and offered food and drink. There are days of speeches, of feasting, of exchanging lavish gifts, brilliant feather work, intricate gold jewelry, fine textiles. It's all incredibly cordial. You are a fly on the wall in the Tlaxcala N court. You watch as your ambassador rises to speak. His voice is calm, measured, almost poetic. He doesn't speak of conquest or anger. He speaks of the gods. He explains, with great solemnity, that the sun is weak, that the earth is dry, that the gods have expressed a desire for sustenance, a need for the precious water of life to ensure the continuation of the world for everyone. He might say something like, "The Lord of the close and the near, the giver of life, wishes to be entertained. He wishes to see his eagles and his jaguars dance the dance of blade upon the sacred field." It's a beautifully phrased invitation to a deadly contest. And then he presents the final symbolic gifts. A shield, a collection of spears, and a special kind of soap used for ritually washing the bodies of the dead. The message is unmistakable, yet wrapped in layers of politeness. We invite your finest warriors to meet us in battle, to provide our gods with the offerings they require. We honor your bravery, so much that we anticipate some of you will achieve the glorious end of a warrior, and we provide these gifts to help you prepare. It is the most elegant death threat in history. Now the Tlaxcalaan rulers have a choice. They could, in theory, refuse, but that would be a grave insult not just to you, but to the gods themselves. It would be an admission of cowardice, a stain on their city's honor that would never wash away. So they accept. With equal solemnity and poetic language, they agree that the gods must be honored. They thank your ambassadors for the prestigious invitation. They accept the symbolic gifts. Then, they offer their own, another set of shields, spears, and funerary items. A polite right back at you. This is the point where historians of the future will scratch their heads. The whole affair is recorded in the codices, the painted books of your people. But the level of formality is so extreme it's hard for an outsider to grasp. Was there genuine animosity beneath the surface? Absolutely. Your peoples were locked in a century-long struggle for dominance. But that animosity was channeled through this incredibly rigid, ritualistic system. Before your ambassadors leave, the final details are ironed out. The date is set, often to align with a specific festival in the religious calendar. The location is chosen a sacred field, a CUAUHT lally, often located conveniently right on the border between your territories. It's a neutral ground, a divine stage for the drama to unfold. Your ambassadors return to Tenochtitlan not with a declaration of war, but with a confirmation of a sacred appointment. The news spreads through the city not as a cause for fear, but as a reason for excitement and preparation. The time has come to select the flowers. The time has come to prepare the garden for its bloom. With the date and location set, a new energy buzzes through the city. It's not the frantic, fearful energy of mobilization for a war of survival. It's more like the focused excitement before a great festival. For the chosen warriors, this is the moment they have trained for their entire lives. And now, they must dress for the occasion. You find yourself in the armory of one of the great warrior houses, the Komikap, where the sons of nobles train. The air is thick with the smells of leather, feathers, and the sharp, clean scent of obsidian. But this is no drab, functional military depot. It is more like the backstage dressing room of a grand opera. The equipment of war here is not about camouflage or practicality. It is about glory. It is about making yourself as beautiful and as terrifying as a living god. You watch a young nobleman, a warrior who has already proven himself by taking a captive or two in previous skirmishes. He is being attended by servants, his squires. They are not strapping him into dull iron plates. They are clothing him in a work of art. First comes the Ichkahu-pil-ai, the quilted cotton armor. It's a thick, sleeveless tunic, stuffed with rocks Alton packed so tightly that it can stop an obsidian arrow or a spear thrust. It's surprisingly effective, and far more practical for the climate than the metal suits those future invaders will wear. You can't help but think those poor men in metal will cook themselves under your sun. But this cotton armor is just the canvas. Over this, he wears a Thalathus whittle, a full-body suit that is less a uniform and more of a divine costume. It is a masterpiece of feather work. Thousands of tiny, iridescent feathers from hummingbirds, parrots, and macaws have been meticulously sewn onto a fabric backing, creating a shimmering, vibrant mosaic of color. The suit might be designed to look like a coyote, a serpent, or a fearsome god. Its purpose is to transform the wearer from a man into a living embodiment of a sacred concept. On his back, they mount the Pamet El. This is a towering wooden frame, a magnificent banner that extends high above his head. It's decorated with more feathers, long, flowing green plumes from the Quetzal, the most prized bird in the empire, along with gold discs and intricate carvings. This isn't for protection. It's a statement. It's a statement. It announces who he is, his rank, his lineage, and his past victories. On the chaotic garden of the battlefield, these banners will be the way to identify the most valuable flowers. The bigger and more elaborate the back rack, the more prestigious the potential captive. Then comes the helmet. It's not a simple bowl of metal. It is carved from a single piece of hardwood, and it is a sculpture. It might be the snarling head of a jaguar, or the open-beaked face of an eagle, with the warrior's own determined face peering out from within the animal's jaws. Finally, they bring him his shield, the Kaim or Eye. It's a circle of woven reeds and wood, but its face is another canvas for the feather workers. It might show a geometric pattern, a mythological scene, or the symbol of his warrior society. It is both a piece of defensive equipment and a personal coat of arms. You look around the armory. Every single warrior is undergoing a similar transformation. They are becoming dazzling, terrifying works of mobile art. The sheer aesthetic of it all is overwhelming. This is a key point that future historians will often miss, focusing only on the grim finale of the process. They'll forget the beauty. They'll forget that to your people, war and art are not separate categories. The act of battle is a performance, an aesthetic experience, a dance. And here's a strange detail. While a warrior's suit is glorious, it's not entirely his own. Many of the most spectacular outfits are technically the property of the emperor, the Tla-to-Ani. They are loaned out to warriors as a mark of favor, a reward for their bravery. If you perform well, you get to wear an even more incredible suit next time. It's a system of honor and incentive, all tied up in this breathtaking artistry. As the fully dressed warrior stands, he is no longer just a man. He is a 7-foot-tall, shimmering, feathered deity of battle. He is a walking, breathing masterpiece. And he is dressed this way not to hide, but to be seen. He is a peacock, not a hawk. He is designed to attract attention, to draw the eye of an equally glorious opponent. He is dressing, quite literally, to be captured. Because to be taken alive by a worthy foe while wearing such finery is the most honorable death a warrior can imagine. The warrior is a vision, a walking piece of sacred art. He is almost ready. But a flower, no matter how beautiful, must have its thorns. The final piece of his ensemble is brought forward, presented with a quiet reverence. It is his weapon, and it is unlike any weapon you have ever imagined. The attendant approaches, not with something that sings as it leaves a metal scabbard, but with something that looks, from a distance, like a heavy wooden paddle or an oversized cricket bat. This is the macuahutel. You reach out to touch it. The main body is made of a dense, dark hardwood, probably oak, polished smooth over countless hours. It feels solid, heavy, with a serious heft to it. It is designed for bludgeoning, for delivering powerful, stunning blows. But that is only half of its story. You run your fingers carefully along the edges. Set into grooves down both sides of the club are rows of small, rectangular blades. They are not metal, they are obsidian. Volcanic glass. In your culture, this material, called Aztec, is miraculous. It is broken from large cores with breathtaking skill, creating flakes and blades that are sharper than anything metal can produce. A freshly made obsidian edge is many times sharper than a modern surgeon's scalpel, capable of slicing through flesh with terrifying ease. These razor-sharp prisms of black glass are glued into the grooves with a powerful, sticky resin made from bitumen or pine sap. The result is a weapon that is both a club and a saw. It is a tool designed for a very specific, and frankly, rather peculiar job. A European knight's longsword is designed to pierce armor and run a man through. A Viking's axe is made to split a shield and the man behind it. The macuahutel is designed to do neither of those things. A direct, clean kill is not its primary function. In a flower war, a dead enemy on the field is a wasted resource, a failure. This weapon is an instrument of controlled damage. The goal is to slash the arms and legs of an opponent, to sever muscles and tendons, to incapacitate them without striking a fatal blow to the torso or head. You want to injure them just enough, so they can no longer fight back. Then, with your opponent disabled but alive, you and your comrades can swarm in, grab him, and secure your precious captive. It is a weapon built for the art of not killing. Now, this doesn't mean it wasn't dangerous. The Spanish, when they first encountered this weapon, were utterly terrified of it. There's a famous, almost legendary account from one of their chronicles that claims a powerful Aztec warrior, with a single blow of a macuahutel, decapitated a horse. This story has echoed through history, painting a picture of a super weapon of unbelievable power. And this is where the historians of the future will gather around a table and argue for hours. Could it really take off a horse's head? On one hand, the physics are compelling. A heavy wooden club, swung with immense force, carrying dozens of razor-sharp edges, it would create a wound of unimaginable horror. Perhaps decapitate was an exaggeration for a slash that cut so deep into the horse's neck that its head was left hanging by a thread. On the other hand, obsidian is glass. It is incredibly brittle. While it is sharper than steel, it shatters on impact with hard surfaces. A powerful blow against Spanish armor, or even thick bone, would likely break many of the blades, turning the weapon into little more than a heavy club. So the great horse decapitation debate rages on, a perfect example of how the truth of the past is often a mixture of eyewitness shock and a little bit of storytelling flair. What is certain is that to wield the macuahutel in a flower war required a level of skill that is hard to comprehend. It wasn't about just swinging wildly. It was about knowing just how much force to use. Too little, and your opponent keeps fighting. Too much, and you've just destroyed a sacred offering intended for the sun god. It's an art form. And only the very best, the most disciplined and dedicated warriors, could truly master it. They were the ones who had earned the right to wear the most spectacular costumes of all, the pelts of the jaguar and the feathers of the eagle. And so you look now, not at the average warrior, but at the ones who have mastered this deadly art. They stand apart. Even in the bustling courtyards of the temples or the crowded avenues of the city, they move with a different kind of confidence. They are the elite, the special forces, the rock stars of the empire. They are the jaguar and the eagle warriors. You see them now, training in a dedicated precinct near the Temple Omeir. They are not wearing the dazzling multicolored feather suits of the noblemen preparing for their first big battle. Their regalia is more focused, more iconic. Several men are covered head to toe in the mottled pelts of jaguars, the most powerful and feared predator of the land. Their own faces, painted for war, stare out from within the fixed jaws of the jaguar's head, which serves as their helmet. They are the Osilo mate, the jaguar knights. Nearby, another group trains. Their suits are covered in the dark feathers of the eagle, and their helmets are carved into the sharp, hooked beak and piercing eyes of the bird that rules the sky. They are the Cuohtli, the Eagle Knights. Together, these two societies represent the pinnacle of military and social achievement for any man in the empire. To become one of them is the dream of every boy who has ever picked up a practice shield. But it is a dream earned not through birthright, but through breathtaking courage and skill on the battlefield. There is a very clear, very dangerous career path. It is, in a way, a deadly corporate ladder. A warrior's first capture earns him the right to wear his hair in a special top knot and to carry a real weapon. His second and third captives earn him the right to wear a special kind of feathered suit, a Thalatharswittle, with a design that signals his success to everyone who sees him. It's like getting a promotion with a new, more impressive uniform. But the real prize comes after the fourth captive. If a warrior can manage to capture 4 enemy fighters alive in a single campaign, he becomes eligible. He has proven his worth. He can apply to join one of the 2 great orders. This was one of the few paths of true social mobility in your society. A commoner, born with nothing, could, through sheer bravery, climb the ranks and become a celebrated hero, earning land, titles, and a seat at the emperor's table. It was a powerful incentive. The exact relationship between the 2 orders is something scholars of the future will puzzle over. Were they rivals, constantly competing for glory in the favor of the gods? Or were they 2 complementary halves of a single elite force, representing the 2 great domains of the world, the earth and the sky? Some will suggest they even had different tactical roles in a real war of conquest, the eagles acting as scouts and fast-moving skirmishers, the jaguars as the heavy shock troops who would break the enemy line. In a flower war, however, they seemed to operate as equals, individual champions, seeking out the most valuable opponents on the field. You watch them practice. They move with a fluid grace, their Makiue who are TLS whistling through the air. Their training is relentless. It is not just about fighting. They are taught strategy, leadership, and religion. They are expected to be as devout as they are deadly. They are the guardians of the state, the providers for the gods, the living embodiment of the Aztec ideal. And here is a peculiar detail, a small secret of the orders. While they are celebrated for capturing enemies for the gods, they also have a unique privilege if they themselves are ever captured. A normal warrior, if taken by the enemy, would face the sacrificial stone, but an eagle or jaguar knight if captured might be offered a different, even more honorable end, the gladiatorial sacrifice. They would be tied to a large stone disc and given a weapon, sometimes a mock weapon made of feathers, to fight against a series of fully armed enemy warriors. It was a final, spectacular performance, a last chance to display their courage before their inevitable death. It was considered the most glorious end imaginable. To join their ranks is to accept a life of constant risk for a chance at eternal glory. It is to become more than a man. It is to become a symbol. And now, as the time for the scheduled flower war approaches, it is these men, the best of the best, who will lead the way. They will march out of the city, not as a conquering army, but as a delegation of sacred artists, ready to perform their deadly craft on the agreed-upon field. The day has come. The army, if you can call it that, has marched out from the magnificent city of Tenochtitlan. But the march is not a grim, silent procession. It is a festival on the move. Priests swing censers, filling the air with the thick, piney scent of burning copal. Drummers beat a steady, hypnotic rhythm on hand-held drums, and the high-pitched shriek of boned flutes cuts through the morning air. The warriors, in all their feathered glory, march in perfect formation, their back banners swaying in unison, creating a dazzling, mobile forest of color. You travel with them, a silent observer floating alongside the column. The journey takes you away from the placid blue of the lake up into the high, thin air of the mountain passes that surround the Valley of Mexico. The landscape is beautiful, and stark scrubby pines clinging to the hillsides, agave plants with their sharp gray-green leaves, and the ever-present gaze of the twin volcanoes on the horizon. After a few days of marching, you arrive, not at the gates of an enemy city ready for a siege, but at an open, relatively flat expanse of land. A valley floor, perhaps, or a wide plateau. This is the Cuauhtlali, the sacred battlefield. It is a place that feels strangely neutral. It doesn't belong to you, and it doesn't belong to your enemies from Tlaxcala, whose own vibrant, marching column you can now see approaching from the opposite direction. This field is a designated space, a divine arena set aside specifically for this purpose. Historians of a later age, poring over the few surviving maps and codices, will try to pinpoint the exact locations of these traditional battlegrounds. They will find names that recur, places that seem to have hosted these deadly tournaments for generations, situated perfectly on the political fault lines between the great powers of the region. The atmosphere is not one of impending chaos. It is one of preparation for a grand formal event. Both armies may camp, but there are no frantic efforts to dig trenches or build fortifications. There are no patrols of nervous sentries peering into the darkness, expecting a surprise attack. A night raid would be unthinkable. It would be a profound violation of the rules, a dishonorable act that would offend gods more than the enemy. Instead, the evening before the battle is spent in ritual. You watch as priests build small, temporary shrines, making offerings of tobacco and incense to the gods of the earth on which the battle will be fought. The warriors themselves are not sharpening their blades in a frenzy. They are in a state of spiritual preparation. Many of them are fasting. Others are engaged in ritual bloodletting, piercing their own tongues or earlobes with cactus spines as a personal offering, a way of showing their devotion and steeling their minds for what is to come. There is singing, not boisterous drinking songs, but long, poetic chants about the deeds of past heroes, the beauty of a warrior's death, and the endless hunger of the gods. It is a somber, beautiful, and deeply focused environment. Here's something you notice that feels particularly strange. There are families here. Not on the front lines, of course, but merchants and camp followers have accompanied the armies, setting up a temporary market a safe distance away. They sell food, drink, and other supplies. It lends the entire affair the feeling of a massive, and very dangerous, medieval tournament or a modern-day sporting event. People have come to watch. The battle is a spectacle, a public performance of the highest order. As the sun sets, casting long shadows across the valley, a strange calm descends. The two armies are camped within sight of each other. You can see the flickering campfires of the Tlaxcala NS, just as they can see yours. There is no shouting of insults across the field, no displays of aggression. There is only a shared, silent understanding. Tomorrow, many of them will meet their glorious end. Tomorrow. The sun will be fed. The rules of this place are absolute. The battle will begin at a designated time, often signaled by the lighting of a great signal fire. It will end when the sun sets, or when one side feels they have taken enough captives to satisfy their ritual needs. To fight outside these established parameters would be a breach of sacred law. This isn't a brawl, it's a ceremony, and the field has been consecrated, ready for the flowers of war to bloom upon it. As you stand on the edge of this sacred field, looking out at the waiting Tlaxcala and army, you feel a strange lack of pure animosity. There is tension, yes. There is not the kind of seething hatred you might expect between two peoples about to engage in battle. The relationship between your triple alliance and the city-state of Tlaxcala is complicated. They are your favorite enemies. For decades, Your empire has expanded in every direction. You have conquered cities in the hot, humid lowlands to the south and in the dry, dusty plains to the north. One by one, the city-states of the Valley of Mexico have fallen under your sway, agreeing to pay tribute into the coffers of Tenochtitlan, all except for a stubborn, unyielding pocket of resistance to the east, the Tlaxcala Confederacy. They are like you, a Nahuatl-speaking people. They share many of the same gods, the same calendar, the same worldview. They are, in essence, your cousins, and they are fiercely, suicidally proud of their independence. You have tried to conquer them in wars of fire and water, your term for a true war of conquest. But they have always fought you off. Their lands are mountainous and easily defended, and their warriors are every bit as skilled and as brave as your own. So a strange, almost symbiotic relationship has developed. You have effectively surrounded them, cutting off their access to key trade goods. It's a long-term siege. The Tlaxcala NS, for instance, have no access to cotton, so their nobles have to wear clothes made of rough agave fibers. They have no access to salt, a major hardship, and most critically, they have no access to the rich coastal lowlands where cacao, the bean used to make the bitter, sacred chocolate drink, is grown. This economic pressure is constant, and yet you never commit the full, overwhelming force of the empire to simply wipe them off the map. Why? The question of why the mighty Aztec Empire allowed Tlaxcala to remain independent is one that will fuel academic conferences for centuries. One school of thought, the traditional one, is that you left them alone on purpose. They were your official sparring partner. You needed a reliable, nearby source of high-quality warriors for the Flower Wars, and the Tlaxcala NS were the perfect candidates. They were conveniently close, perpetually hostile, and exceptionally brave. Some of your own histories even claim that this was a formal, if unwritten, agreement. You would allow them their independence, and in return, they would serve as the Empire's sacred gymnasium, providing the necessary flowers to keep the cosmic order intact. Another, more cynical theory suggests you simply cowed and conquer them. That for all your power, the Tlaxcala NS were just too tough a nut to crack, and the Flower Wars were a way of saving face, a way of turning a military stalemate into a ritual obligation. By calling your constant, bloody skirmishes a Flower War, you could explain away your failure to subdue them as a matter of religious choice rather than military limitation. The debate, as always, continues. But here, on the eve of battle, the relationship feels deeply personal. Your warriors know their opponents, not just by reputation, but often by name. A seasoned Eagle Knight from Tenochtitlan might have faced the same high-ranking Tlaxcala N warrior on this very field a year ago. They might have exchanged blows, tested each other's strength, and then departed when the sun went down. There is a deep, abiding, and lethal respect between them. You are not fighting faceless barbarians. You are fighting a mirror image of yourselves. You are fighting the only people in the world you consider to be your true equals. And this is precisely why they are the perfect offering. To capture at Tlaxcala and noble, a celebrated hero of their people, is the greatest honor a warrior can achieve. It proves your strength against the very best, and it provides the gods with a meal that is truly worthy of their divine station. So as the sun prepares to rise, you look across the field at the army of Tlaxcala, an army without cotton, without salt, without chocolate, an army fueled by little more than pride and absolute refusal to bend the knee. And you know that the battle to come will be a beautiful, terrible, and perfectly matched dance between the world's most respectful and dedicated enemies. The first rays of the sun strike the twin peaks of the distant volcanoes, and a murmur of anticipation runs through the ranks. The sacred moment is at hand. A great column of smoke rises from a signal fire lit by the priests, a sign visible to both armies. The high, piercing wail of a conch shell trumpet echoes across the valley. The ceremony is about to begin. But this is not a mad, chaotic charge. A flower war is governed by rules, a strict etiquette of violence that would seem utterly bizarre to an outsider. It is a duel on a massive scale, and everyone knows the choreography. First, there is the formal exchange of insults. But these are not crude slurs. They are poetic taunts, shouted across the open field by designated orators. They boasted their city's valor, praised the strength of their own warriors, and belittled the bravery of their opponents in flowery, elaborate language. "Oh, you men of Tlaxcala, have you come to leave your pretty feathers upon our obsidian blades? The sun desires to taste Tlaxcala in water today. It's psychological warfare, but with a distinctly literary flair. Then the battle begins, but not all at once. It unfolds in carefully orchestrated waves. The first to advance are the youngest, most inexperienced warriors. The commoners, the boys who have yet to take their first captive. They are the opening act. They surge forward with their simple spears and shields, their main purpose being to test the enemy's lines, to create a bit of chaos, and if they are very lucky or very brave, to snag a low-ranking opponent for their first taste of glory. You watch as this first wave crashes into its Tlaxcala equivalent. It's a flurry of activity, but it's not a fight to the death. The focus is on grabbing, wrestling, and disabling. A warrior might try to hook his small, round shield behind an enemy's knee to trip him, while his companion rushes in to grab the fallen man's limbs. It's more like a massive, weaponized rugby scrum than a conventional battle. After this initial chaotic phase, the real heart of the flower war begins. The champions step forward. The established heroes, the noblemen in their dazzling feather suits, and of course the jaguar and eagle knights. The battle now transforms from a melee into a series of individual duels. The rules of these duels are understood by all. A warrior will seek out an opponent of equal or greater rank. An eagle knight would not waste his time trying to capture a common soldier who has never taken a captive. That would be beneath him. There would be no honor in it. He is hunting for the most magnificent flower in the garden, a Tlaxcalan nobleman with an equally elaborate back banner and a reputation for skill. One of the strangest and most debated rules of engagement concerns numbers. Your history's record that it was considered a great act of skill for a single warrior to capture an enemy, but it was also perfectly acceptable, and much more common, for a group of warriors to work together. If a champion managed to wound and disable a high-ranking opponent with his Mac UI-ranking opponent with his Mac UA Hutel, his comrades would rush in to help subdue the man and drag him away from the fight. Some accounts even suggest there was a kind of point system. The warrior who landed the disabling blow would get the primary credit for the capture, but those who assisted would also share in the honor. The exact social mathematics of this are, like so many things, a topic of endless debate among those who study your world. There are other unspoken rules. You do not strike a man who has surrendered or is already being taken captive. You do not aim for the back. And you do not, under any circumstances, kill an enemy who could be taken alive. To do so would be a spiritual crime, a waste of a precious resource. It would be like a farmer burning his own harvest. This highly ritualized combat creates a strange rhythm on the battlefield. Periods of intense, one-on-one violence are followed by lulls as captives are secured and escorted to the rear. It is a dance of advances and retreats, of spectacular challenges and coordinated teamwork. It is a system designed to maximize the capture of high-value individuals while minimizing unnecessary deaths on the field. It is, in its own way, a form of sustainable, ritualized warfare. The conch shell trumpet blows again, its mournful cry signaling the start of the main event. The champions of Tenochtitlan unsurge forward, not in a single roaring line, but as a glittering wave of individual heroes. The Tlaxcala NS, their own champions equally magnificent, rush to meet them. And the sacred field, the CUA-UHTL alley, erupts into 1,000 points of vibrant, deadly color. You are floating now, a spirit of the air, drifting above the chaos. From this vantage point, the word battlefield feels wrong. It looks more like a meadow where impossible flowers have suddenly bloomed. Brilliant reds, blues, and the shimmering green of quetzal feathers move in a dizzying, hypnotic dance. The sunlight glints off polished obsidian and gold ornaments. It is terrifyingly beautiful. You drift lower, focusing on the sounds. You hear the thud of the Mac-UA who are TLS against wooden shields, a sound like 1,000 giant woodpeckers hammering on hollow logs. You hear the sharp crack as an obsidian blade connects with bone. But more than that, you hear the war cries. They are not just guttural screams of rage. Each warrior has his own cry, a challenge, and a biography all in one. They shout the names of their gods, the name of their city. Tinatectalan rises in a rhythmic chant from one side, met by a defiant Tlaxcala. Reichsskola rises in a rhythmic chant from one side, met by a defiant Tlaxcala from the other, and you hear the whistles. Small, clay whistles, often shaped like skulls or animals, are worn around the necks of the warriors. They blow into them as they fight, creating a high-pitched, unnerving shriek that cuts through the din. It's a sound designed to terrify, to overwhelm the senses, a form of auditory warfare that the Spanish would later describe as the sound of demons. Your attention is drawn to a single duel. An eagle knight from your city, his helmet a perfect raptor's head, faces off against a Tlaxcala and warrior dressed in the regalia of a great coyote. They circle each other, their macuahuatiles held ready. There is no rush. This is a conversation being held with weapons. The Tlaxcala lunges, his blow aimed at the eagle's legs. The eagle knight sidesteps, his feathered shield coming up to deflect the blow with a shower of obsidian sharp. He counters with a sweeping strike of his own, not at the Tlaxcala in his head, but at his weapon arm. This is the nature of the fight. It is a series of precise, calculated attacks and defenses. The goal is to create an opening, to wound a limb, to break a shield, to exhaust your opponent until the moment of capture presents itself. You see a young warrior, perhaps in his first flower war, make a mistake. He overcommits to a strike, leaving himself off balance. In a flash, Tlaxcala NS are on him. One trips him, the other brings the flat of his macuahutil down on the back of the boy's thighs. He falls incapacitated but alive. They quickly bind his hands and lead him away, a look of profound, honorable shame on his face. He has failed, but he will serve the gods of Tlaxcala, and in that, there is a strange kind of victory. Nearby, a veteran jaguar knight showcases his mastery. He is fighting two opponents at once. He moves with a low, predatory grace, his jaguar pelt suit making him seem one with the earth. He uses his shield not just to block, but as a weapon, shoving one opponent off balance. As the man stumbles, the jaguar knight's macuahutil flashes, not slicing but striking the man's temple with the flat, wooden side of the weapon, a stunning blow. The man crumples, dazed but not dead. Seeing his comrade fall, hesitates for a fraction of a second. It's all the opening the jaguar knight needs. He hooks the man's ankle with his foot, and as he tumbles, the jaguar is upon him. A perfect 2-for-1 capture. His assistants rush in to secure the prizes. The entire field is a collage of these small, intense dramas. It is a spectacle of supreme athletic skill and courage. A dance where a single misstep can be the difference between being the captor and the captive. The air is thick with dust, the scent of sweat and incense, and the coppery tang of blood. The flowers are in full glorious, terrible bloom. Your gaze is now fixed on the core principle of this entire spectacle, the one skill that elevates a warrior from a mere brawler to a true artist, the art of not killing. It is a concept so foreign to other modes of warfare that it requires a complete rewiring of a soldier's instincts. Everywhere else in the world, a warrior is trained to find the quickest, most efficient path to his enemy's death. A thrust to the heart, a slash to the neck, a blow to the skull. Here, those instincts must be suppressed, controlled, and redirected. The killing blow is the mark of an amateur, a clumsy butcher who does not understand the sacred geometry of the battle. You watch an Aztec captain, identifiable by the sheer magnificence of his back banner, as he engages a similarly high-ranking Tlaxcala lord. The Tlaxcala is a whirlwind of aggression, his macuahutil blur. The Aztec captain is a study in patience. He gives ground, absorbing the blows on his sturdy shield, the feather mosaic on its face slowly being shredded, the wood beneath it splintering. He is waiting, he is watching his opponent's breathing, the shift of his weight, the growing fatigue in his shoulders. This is the key. A flower war is a battle of endurance as much as skill. The heavy cotton armor, while effective, is also hot and restrictive. The wooden macuahutil is heavy, After an hour of dueling under the high-altitude sun, muscles burn, lungs heave, and concentration begins to fray. The Aztec captain is conserving his energy, letting the Tlaxcala warrior wear himself out. Then he sees it. A momentary lapse. The Tlaxcala swing is a fraction of a second too slow, his shield held a few inches too low. The Aztec captain does not go for the head or chest. He explodes forward in a blow of motion, his own huge tail striking not with its sharp edge, but with its flat side, a stunning brutal blow against the Tlaxcala's thigh. You hear the sickening crunch as the muscle is crushed against the bone. The Tlaxcala warrior roars in pain and collapses to one knee. He is out of the fight. He is helpless. The Aztec captain does not press the advantage by finishing him off. Instead, he raises his weapon to the sky and lets out a victory cry. Immediately, two of his squires, who had been watching from a safe distance, rush in. They carry ropes made of mighty fiber. One of them grabs the fallen noble's hutel while the other quickly and efficiently binds his hands. The captive is treated with a strange, almost tender reverence. They help him to his feet, supporting his weight. He is not dragged through the dirt or mocked. He is an honored prize, a sacred vessel destined for the gods. He is already transitioning from an enemy combatant to a holy object. This is the perfect capture, an enemy warrior of high rank taken alive with minimal damage. This single act has more value than killing a dozen lesser opponents. The Aztec captain has just secured his reputation, increased his social standing, and, most importantly, provided a truly worthy meal for High Tistaputic. The logistics of this are a nightmare, and a subject of much debate for future tacticians. How do you manage a battlefield where your primary goal is to take prisoners? You need a whole support staff. For every few elite warriors, you need assistants ready with ropes, and guards to escort the captives to a secure holding area in the rear. It makes the army's tale much longer and more complex than a conventional force. Some historians will even argue that this complex system was, in its own way, a military weakness. It trained warriors for a highly specialized, ritualized form of combat that was beautiful and effective in its own context, but left them unprepared for a different kind of enemy, one who fought to kill and cull indiscriminately. But for now, in this moment, the system is working perfectly. All across the field, you see this difficult art being practiced. A disabling blow, a quick submission, a respectful escort from the field. It is a harvest, a careful, selective harvest of the bravest flowers from the enemy's garden. You now turn your attention away from the captor, with his triumphant shouts, and Tlaxcala noble, his leg throbbing with pain, is being led away from the sounds of battle. His magnificent coyote helmet has been removed, his hands are bound, and on his face, you see an expression that is difficult for an outsider to interpret. There is pain, yes. There is the exhaustion of a fight pushed to the absolute limit, but there is no terror. There is a strange, profound sense of acceptance, a kind of weary, solemn pride. In your world, this is the most honorable defeat. To understand this, you have to understand the Aztec concept of death, or rather deaths. Not all ends are created equal. To die of old age or sickness in your bed that was a grim, unglamorous fate. Your soul would have to undertake a long, arduous journey through the 9 levels of the underworld, Mictland, a place of darkness and trial. But there were other, better ways to die. Women who died in childbirth were considered warriors. They had captured a new life for the world, and their souls went to a special paradise, accompanying the sun in the western sky. People who died by drowning, lightning, or certain water-related diseases were chosen by the rain god Talaka, and their spirits would go to his verdant, eternally green paradise Telakaan. But the most glorious death of all, the highest honor a man could achieve, was the Zocus Matilshets, the flowery death. This was the death of a warrior on the battlefield, or even better, the death of a warrior upon the sacrificial stone. To be chosen offering to the gods was not a punishment. It was a promise that your soul would bypass the gloomy underworld entirely. Instead, your spirit would join the company of the greatest heroes, becoming a part of the sun's personal retinue, accompanying him on his daily journey from his glorious sunrise to his zenith at midday. For years you would be a warrior of the sun, living a life of bliss in the sky. After that, you might be reincarnated as a hummingbird or a butterfly, forever drinking the sweet nectar of the flowers in the god's own gardens. This belief is ingrained in every warrior from the moment he can hold a spear. It is the ultimate goal. Life on earth is fleeting, transient. It is a dream. True reality, true glory, is found in this noble, sacrificial end. So as the Tlaxcala noble is led away, he is not thinking of himself as a prisoner of war. He is a chosen one. He has fulfilled his purpose. He fought bravely, was defeated by a worthy opponent, and will now become food for the gods. He will help to keep the universe in motion. His name will be sung in the epic poems of his home city, Tlaxcala, not as a victim, but as a hero who achieved the most perfect end. His family will mourn him, but they will also celebrate his glorious fate. Of course, the reality of this is complex, and it's a point that will endlessly fascinate and trouble future anthropologists. Did every single captured warrior truly feel this way? Was there no fear, no regret? It's impossible to know official ones. The ideals recorded by the priests and the nobility. It's entirely possible that a young, terrified commoner, captured in his first battle, felt a very real inhuman fear. The historical record is largely silent on the inner lives of ordinary people. The grand narrative, however, is one of willing, honorable sacrifice. This worldview also explains the treatment of the captives. As the Tlaxcala warrior is brought to the Aztec camp, he is not thrown into a squalid pit. He is greeted by priests. His bonds are loosened. His wounds are tended to by healers with surprising gentleness, using herbal remedies to clean the cuts and reduce the swelling. They want to preserve the offering, to keep it in the best possible condition. He has ceased to be an enemy. He has now become an sight law, a representation, a living embodiment of the God to whom he will be offered. He is a sacred object, and he will be treated as such. His journey is far from over. In fact, the most surreal and honored part of his life is just about to begin. As the duels rage across the sacred field, you notice a different kind of participant, figures who are not engaged in the physical struggle, but are observing it with an unnerving intensity. They are the priests. You see them standing on small rises at the edge of the battlefield, their dark, soot-colored robes a stark contrast to the brilliant plumage of the warriors. Their appearance is striking, and intentionally so. Unlike the warriors who are a vision of vibrant life, the priests cultivate an aura of ascetic dread. Their hair is long and matted, caked with dried blood from their own ritual offerings. Their earlobes are shredded from countless acts of self-sacrifice. Their fingernails are long and unkempt. They are men who live halfway in the spirit world, and they look the part. They are not here to cheer or to offer medical aid. They are here as divine accountants. They are watching the battle unfold, but they are not seeing it in tactical terms. They are reading it like a sacred text. They are not military strategists diagramming troop movements. They are theologians and diviners, and they are reading the battle like a sacred text. Every duel is a divine sentence. Every capture is a punctuation mark. They are observing the ebb and flow of fortune, noting which warriors, which sacred banners, seem to be favored by the gods on this day. An eagle knight who takes 3 captives is not just a skilled fighter, he is clearly a man upon whom the sun god, Plutic, has bestowed his grace. A Tlaxcala champion who seems untouchable for hours is not just a great athlete, he is being protected by the patron deity of his own city. The priests take meticulous notes. Who was captured? What was the insignia on his shield? How did he fight? How did he fall? All of this information is vital. It is data for the great cosmic equation. When they return to the temples of Tenochtitlan, this information will be analyzed, debated, and interpreted. It will be used to make prophecies. If the battle went exceptionally well for your warriors, it is a sign that the gods are pleased with the empire. If your losses were higher than expected, or if a particularly famous champion was captured, it is a worrying omen. It might signify that a certain god is displeased and requires a different kind of offering, or a more elaborate festival. The flower war is a conversation with the divine, and the priests are the translators. This is a layer of the conflict that is almost entirely invisible to an outsider. A future general studying this battle would be baffled. He would see tactical opportunities not taken, advantages not pressed. He would criticize the Aztec commanders for simply stopping the fight when they seemed to have the upper hand. He would not understand that victory was not the point. Balance was the point. Fulfilling the ritual obligation was the point. And here a fascinating and somewhat murky question arises, one that modern historians still grapple with. Did the priests ever intervene? Some sources seem to suggest that the flower wars were not always left entirely to the chaos of combat. There are hints of a practice that sounds suspiciously like match-fixing. It is whispered that sometimes before a battle, the priests from both sides would meet and discreetly agree on the number of captives that were needed. It would ensure that both sides could return to their respective cities with enough offerings to satisfy their gods, maintaining a kind of ritual parity. It's a controversial idea. Did this truly happen? Or is it a misunderstanding of the complex diplomacy that preceded the wars? It's hard to say for certain. The evidence is scant and open to interpretation, but it opens up a strange possibility that some of these deadly, beautiful duels were, in fact, a carefully choreographed public performance, with the outcome secretly upon beforehand, a piece of sacred theater where the actors, the warriors themselves, may or may not have been in on the scriptures. Whether it was a true contest of skill or a pre-arranged ceremony, the role of the priests was paramount. They were the scorekeepers in a game only they truly understood. As they pack up their painted books, their faces are impassive. The battle has provided them with new verses for the epic poem of the cosmos, new data points in their endless quest and the will of the gods. So you stand in the aftermath on the now quiet field. The Tlaxcala-ines are retreating with their own honored captives, and your warriors are preparing the march home with theirs. The priests are studying their notes. And a fundamental question hangs in the air, a question that has been whispered by skeptical merchants in the marketplace and will be shouted by academics in the halls of the future. What was this really about? Was this entire spectacular, deadly affair truly just a religious ceremony? They wait to procure offerings for a thirsty sun god. That is the official story, the one every child learns. It's the reason that is carved in stone on the temples and painted in the codices. And for many, perhaps most, of your people, it is the unquestionable truth. The cosmic stakes are real. The sun's thirst is real. But as you watch the eagle and jaguar knights, their movements still sharp and precise even in their exhaustion, another possibility insists on being heard. This was undeniably the most intense and realistic military training exercise ever devised. Think about it. In a time of relative peace, when the Empire is not actively engaged in a war of conquest, how do you keep your elite warriors from growing soft? You can have them practice drills in the city courtyards, but that's not the same as facing a determined, skilled opponent who is actively trying to disable and capture you. A flower war is the perfect solution. It's a live-fire exercise. It keeps your army battle-hardened, your commanders experienced in logistic, and your warriors accustomed to the sights and sounds of real combat. It's a way to test new strategies and to allow young, ambitious warriors a chance to prove themselves and move up the ranks. In this view, the religious justification, while genuinely believed, is also incredibly convenient. It provides a sacred pretext for what is, in essence, a perpetual state of military readiness. The need to feed the gods ensures that the army never has a true peacetime. And then there is the third, more cynical perspective, the political one. The flower war was an instrument of state policy. They too love imperialism, but one wielded with the precision of a scalpel rather than the blunt force of a hammer. By engaging in these endless, attritional wars with the Tlaxcala-ines and their allies, you were slowly bleeding them dry. Every Tlaxcala-en noble captured was a leader, a trained warrior, a valuable asset their society could not replace. Long-term strategy of demographic warfare. You were weakening your most stubborn enemy, generation by generation, without the massive cost and risk of an all-out invasion. It also served as a powerful form of propaganda. The constant flow of high-ranking captives back to Tenochtitlan was a demonstration of the Empire's power. It sent a clear message to all the other city-states in the region who paid you tribute. This is the fate of those who defy us. This is the strength of our warriors and the favor of our gods. Stay in line, pay your taxes, and this will not happen to you. So which is it? A holy war, a training day, or a political power play? The great debate among historians will never be settled, because the answer is almost certainly all of the above. There is no need to choose just one. For your people, these motivations were not contradictory. They were woven together into a single, complex worldview. It was religiously necessary to feed the gods, it was militarily prudent to keep the army sharp, and it was politically advantageous to intimidate your enemies. The Flower War was the perfect institution, a single, elegant ceremony that accomplished all three goals at once. It's a perfect example of how a society can build a complex system where piety and pragmatism are not in conflict, but are mutually reinforcing. The belief in the thirsty sun god was not a lie used to justify military training. The belief was real, and the military benefits were fortunate, and perhaps divinely ordained, side effect. Or perhaps it was the other way around. The human mind is very good at creating beautiful, divine reasons for doing things that are practical and self-serving. As you watch the last of the warriors leave the field, you realize that the Flower War is a prism. You can look at it from different angles, and it will show you different colors, the deep red of faith, the sharp glint of military steel, or the cool, calculating blue of political strategy. The true nature of the light passing through it remains a beautiful and debatable mystery. The march back to Tenochtitlan is even more grand and theatrical than the march out. It is not a grim procession of prisoners. It is a victory parade, a celebration of a successful sacred harvest. The captives, their wounds cleaned and bound, are placed at the very heart of the column. They are surrounded by the elite warriors who captured them, a guard of honor protecting the most precious cargo. You walk alongside the procession as it reaches the great causeway leading into the city. The entire population of Tenochtitlan, it seems, has come out to greet the returning heroes. The air, which was filled with the sounds of battle just days ago, is now filled with the music of flutes and drums, and the roar of a joyful crowd. People throw flowers, real flowers, this time in the path of the warriors. Marigolds, with their pungent scent and sun-like color, are everywhere, a symbol of the glorious fate that awaits the captives. The warriors who were successful are easy to spot. They march with their heads held high, their feathered banners immaculate. Some of them may have been given a new piece of regalia on the spot by their commander, a special lip plug or armband that signifies their new, elevated status. They have done their duty. They have proven their worth. The captives walk with a solemn dignity. They are not jeered at or spat upon. That would be a grave impiety. The crowd looks upon them with a mixture of awe, reverence, and perhaps a touch of pity. These are the men who will ensure the sun rises tomorrow. They are walking sacrifices, already halfway to being gods themselves. Their bravery is honored. The procession wins its way through the canals and avenues of the city, which have been scrubbed clean and decorated with fresh blossoms. The destination is, of course, the ceremonial heart of the empire, the great temple precinct. Here, in the vast plaza at the foot of the twin pyramids, the emperor himself, the Huitla to Ani, waits. He is seated on a throne, surrounded by his high priests and most trusted advisors. As the column of warriors and their captives enters the plaza, a great cheer erupts, followed by a reverent silence. The victorious warriors march forward, one by one, and present their captives to the emperor. They recount the story of the capture in a formal, boastful speech, detailing the bravery of their opponent, of their own maneuvers. The emperor bestows praise and gifts upon his successful warriors. A fine cloak, a grant of land, a promotion in rank. This is the moment they have been fighting for, the public recognition of their valor. Then, the emperor turns his attention to the captives. He addresses them not as vanquished enemies, but as honored guests. He might make a speech, his voice echoing across the silent plaza, saying something to the effect of, "You have come to the house of the sun. You will be cherished here, for you are our beloved sons and daughters, come to nourish your father and mother, the gods of the earth and the sky." It is a bizarre, disorienting welcome, The captives are then formally handed over to the custody of the priests. Their old lives are now officially over. They are no longer Tlaxcala and warriors. They are the property of the gods of the Mexica. And here is a small, gruesome detail of the plaza that you cannot ignore. Off to one side of the Great Pyramid stands a different kind of structure. It is apparently a skull rack. It is a huge wooden rack on which are displayed, threaded onto long poles, thousands upon thousands of human skulls from previous sacrifices. They are bleached white by the sun, their empty eye sockets staring out over the plaza, a stark and permanent reminder of the city's sacred duty and the cosmic bargain it upholds. It is both an object of holy reverence and a terrifying piece of political intimidation. For the newly arrived captives, it is a clear and unambiguous preview of their final, glorious destiny. Now begins the strangest part of the captive's journey. This is the period that will most baffle and disturb the Spanish chroniclers who will later trade your world. The warrior is not thrown into a dark, damp dungeon to await his fate. Instead, he is treated like a visiting deity. This is the great and terrible paradox of the honored guest. The captive, let's say he is the Tlaxcala and noble you've been following, is led from the main plaza to one of the many temples and priestly houses that surround the Templo Mayor. Here he is ritually bathed. His ragged, battle-worn clothing is taken away and replaced with the finest embroidered cloaks, the same kind of garments worn by your own highest nobility. He is given food and drink, not prison rations, but the best the city has to offer. He feasts on turkey, venison, fresh fish from the lake, and all the fruits and vegetables of the China palms. He is given pulque, the fermented agave drink, to lift his spirits, and he is given chocolate, the bitter, frothy, chili spice drink of kings and gods, a luxury he would not have tasted in his besieged homeland of Tlaxcala. He is for a time assigned servants who would tend to his every need. He is entertained with music and with dance. He is brought out into the city under guard, of course, to see the sights. He might be taken to the great market at Tlatelolco, or shown the aviaries and zoos of the emperor. He is paraded through the streets, and the people of Tenochtitlan greet him with a profound, almost fearful respect. They might offer him gifts, or bow their heads as he passes. They see him as a holy man, an Ixtla, the living impersonator of a god. This period of lavish treatment could last for days, weeks, or in the case of a particularly important captive destined for a major festival, even months. The purpose of this is twofold. On a practical level, it is about fattening the offering. A starved, miserable captive is not a worthy meal for the gods. He must be healthy, strong, and well-fed. But on a much deeper, spiritual level, it is about transformation. The priests are working to erase his old identity as a Tlaxcala and warrior and remake him as a divine vessel. He is given a new name, one associated with the god to whom he will be dedicated. He is taught the songs and the sacred dances that he will have to perform as part of the rituals leading up to his final day. He is being assimilated, not into your society, but into your cosmic machinery. The psychological effect of this must be overwhelming, a surreal state of cognitive dissonance. One moment, you are a hated enemy. The next, you are a pampered celebrity. You are living in the heart of the enemy city that you have fought your entire life, and its people are treating you with a reverence you might not have received at home. You are being honored, feasted, and celebrated, all as a prelude to your own meticulously planned death. Historians and psychologists of the future will debate the nature of this experience endlessly. Was it a form of brainwashing? A way to make the captive docile and accepting of his fate? Or was it a genuine expression of religious belief, a necessary step in preparing a sacred offering? Did the captives immersed in this world of luxury and reverence truly come to believe in the glory of their own sacrifice? Did they embrace their new role as a living god? The surviving accounts, mostly written by Spaniards from an Aztec perspective, suggest that many did. They tell stories of captives who refused offers of escape, who calmly and willingly participated in the rituals, seeing it as the fulfillment of their destiny. One famous story tells of a great warrior captive named Tlahuicol, a man so brave that the emperor of the Aztecs actually offered to free him and make him a general in his own army. who Ecole refused. He insisted on his right to a warrior's death on the sacrificial stone, for to return home in disgrace was a fate worse than any death. Whether this story is literally true or an idealized piece of propaganda, it perfectly captures the cultural ideal. The honored guest is living in a golden cage. He is a flower carefully tended in a divine greenhouse, being brought to the peak of his bloom before he is finally, beautifully picked. As the honored guest lives out his final days in this gilded cage, he becomes deeply acquainted with the gods he is destined to feed. Your pantheon is a vast, complex, and often contradictory family of deities. There is Hytistoplutic, the sun god, the ever-thirsty warrior. There is Talakar, the rain god, who can be both a giver of life and a bringer of devastating floods. There is Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, a god of wind, wisdom, and creation. But there is one god whose presence looms particularly large over the fate of warriors, a deity who embodies the chaotic, unpredictable, and often cruel nature of fortune itself. His name is Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror. You see his image everywhere. He is often depicted with a black stripe painted across his face. One of his feet is missing, replaced by a polished, black obsidian mirror. The story goes that he lost his foot while battling the great earth monster to create the world. It is through this smoking mirror that he can see everything that happens in the hearts and minds of humanity. He is a god of the night sky, of magic, of conflict, and of change. He is the ultimate trickster, while Hytistoplutic represents the clear, predictable order of the sun's journey. Tezcatlipoca represents everything else. He is the god of what if. He is the patron of sorcerers, of slaves, and of kings. The emperor, the Huitlaani, is considered his living vessel on earth. But he is also a god who delights in casting down the powerful and raising up the humble. He is the embodiment of the idea that fate is a spinning, unpredictable thing. Today you are a king, tomorrow you could be a beggar. Today you are the captor, tomorrow you could be the captive. For a warrior, Tezcatlipoca is a constant and terrifying companion. He is the god of the heat of battle, the sudden turn of luck, the misleading step that leads to your capture. Praying to Hytistoplutic might give you strength, but it is Tezcatlipoca who will ultimately decide the outcome of your duel. His favor is fickle, his motives unknowable. One of the most important festivals in your calendar is in honor of Tezcatlipoca. And for this festival, the most perfect captive is chosen. For an entire year, one young, unblemished, and physically flawless warrior is selected to be the Ixtla, the living impersonation of Tezcatlipoca himself. This is the ultimate role for an honored guest. For a full year, this young man lives a life of unimaginable luxury. He is dressed in the finest clothes, taught to play the flute with divine skill, and given everything he could possibly desire. He is accompanied everywhere by a retinue of 8 attendants. As he walks through the city, people prostrate themselves before him. For he is not a man, he is Tezcatlipoca. For the last 20 days of his life, his divinity is made complete, who are themselves named after goddesses to be his companions. His final day is a masterpiece of dramatic ritual. He is taken to a small special temple outside the city. He bids farewell to his goddess wives and willingly begins to ascend the steps of the pyramid. On each step, he breaks one of the flutes he has played over the past year, a symbolic shuttering of the sweet, transient life he has lived. When he reaches the top, he willingly lays himself down upon the sacrificial stone. His end is the culmination of a year-long performance, a journey from perfect warrior to perfect god to perfect offering. The relationship between Hytistoplutic and Tezcatlipoca is one of the great mysteries of your religion, a topic of endless debate for your priests and future scholars alike. Some myths portray them as a turtle for dominance. It was their conflict, in fact, that was said to have destroyed the previous suns. Others see them as the sides of the same coin, Hytistoplutic the bright daytime sun, and Tezcatlipoca the dark nighttime sun. War is a sacred duty, and war is a game of chance. For the captive warrior, waiting in his honored confinement, this duality is his reality. He was captured in a war for Hytistoplutic, but his fate was sealed by the whim of Tezcatlipoca. He is now caught between the predictable order of the ritual calendar and the terrifying, unknowable will of the god in the smoking mirror. The days of feasting and celebration begin to wind down. The festival for which the captive has been destined is now close at hand. A new mood settles over the honored guest and his priestly handlers. The atmosphere of luxury gives way to one of intense spiritual focus. The final preparations must be made. The tech scholar and noble, your companion on this strange journey, is now engaged in a constant series of rituals. His days are no longer his own, but are dictated by the sacred rhythms of the temple. He spends long hours with the priests, rehearsing the songs he will be expected to sing. These are not songs of lament, but hymns of praise to the god he is about to nourish. He learns the slow, deliberate movements of the sacred dances he must perform. Every gesture, every step, is laden with symbolic meaning. He is learning the choreography of his own final moments. He undergoes multiple ritual purifications. He is bathed in holy water, his body is cleansed with fragrant herbs, and he is anointed with sacred oils. Plumes of copal incense are wafted over him constantly, the smoke intended to carry his prayers and his essence up to the heavens. His diet changes. The rich feasts are replaced by a simpler, more symbolic fare. He might be given a special kind of tamale or a particular type of corn gruel, foods that are associated with the god or the festival in question. He might also be expected to fast for periods of time, a way of purifying the body and focusing the mind. And he talks. He spends hours in conversation with the high priests. They are not interrogating him for military secrets. They are preparing his soul. They tell him the story of the god he will become. They explain the profound cosmic importance of the act he is about to perform. They reinforce again and again the glory of the flowery death, the promise of a blissful afterlife as a companion of the sun. It is a form of spiritual counseling, a way to ensure that he goes to his end not with fear, but with a full and willing understanding of his sacred role. Does it work? Do these weeks of ritual and indoctrination truly erase a lifetime of loyalty to Tlaxcala and a natural human love of life? The official Aztec account would be an emphatic yes. The captive, through this process, transcends his mortal origins and fully embraces his divine destiny. He becomes a willing participant, and he has a peculiar, almost unbelievable detail that appears in some accounts. On the night before his final ceremony, a captive might be granted a vigil. He would be taken to a sacred shrine, often one dedicated to the warrior gods, and left alone. With him would be 4 bowls, one containing a rich, intoxicating drink, one containing a powerful, sleep-inducing substance, one containing a sharp obsidian blade, and one containing nothing. He could drink and face his end in a stupor. He could end his own life, a path of some honor. He could choose to face his destiny with a clear head and a brave heart. The truly honorable warrior, the stories say, would always choose the empty bowl. Whether this was a common practice or a rare, idealized ritual for only the most high-ranking captives is, like so much, a mystery that historians will forever debate. On the final morning, the preparations reach their peak. The captive is dressed one last time. He is not clothed as a Tlaxcalan warrior, nor as a pampered guest. He is dressed in the specific regalia of the god he is impersonating. His face is painted with the god's symbols. He wears the god's sacred colors. He is given the god's symbolic staff, a weapon to hold. The transformation is complete. He is no longer a man from Tlaxcala. He is a walking, breathing piece of sacred energy. He is the Ixite law in his final perfect form. He is led from the temple and out into the sunlight of the plaza. The great serpent's kind out into the sunlight of the plaza. The great serpent's kind drums at the top of the Templo Mayor begin to beat, a slow, deep, resonant pulse that you can feel in your chest. The sound echoes across the entire city, a signal to all that the time has come. The great cosmic transaction is about to be completed. You are standing now in the vast, teeming plaza at the heart of Tenochtitlan. The sun is high in the sky, beating down on the polished stone. The air is thick with the scent of marigolds and copal incense. Tens of thousands of people are gathered here, a silent, expectant crowd. Their faces are turned upwards towards the great man-made mountain in the center of their world. Your attention is drawn to the base of the pyramid. The procession has arrived. The captive, yacht-like scholar and noble, is at its center. He is no longer walking. He is surrounded by a phalanx of priests. He looks serene, otherworldly, his face a painted mask of divine acceptance. The drums from the top of the pyramid beat a slow, inexorable rhythm, like the heartbeat of the world itself. He begins to climb. The steps of the pyramid are impossibly steep, designed to make anyone ascending them feel small and humbled before the gods who dwell at the summit. He climbs slowly, deliberately. He does not struggle. He does not hesitate. This is the final performance, the culmination of his entire existence. Every eye in the city is upon him. To show fear now would be to dishonor himself, his city, and the god he is about to meet. With him are several junior priests who assist him on the ascent. Halfway up at a small ceremonial platform, the procession might pause. A story is told, a song is sung, another ritual is performed. The drummer is drawn out, the tension building with every step he takes towards the sky. From your position in the crowd, you cannot see the very top of the pyramid clearly. It is a stage reserved for the gods and their most senior servants. But you know what is up there. You have seen it depicted in the codices and described in the holy stories. At the top of the 100+ steps is a flat platform. In the center of this platform, in front of the blood-red temple of Hytis or Portive, lies the Tech-et-El. It is not a flat slab, but a convex, humped block of basalt carved with images of the sun. It is designed to arch the back of the person lying upon it, pushing their chest upwards towards the sky. As the captive reaches the final step, he is greeted by the high priest, the Huiteo Pixki. This is one of the most powerful men in the empire, a figure of immense spiritual and political authority. He is dressed in his full, terrifying regalia. His face is painted black, his ritual garments are stained with the evidence of past ceremonies. He is the divine functionary, the man tasked with performing this most sacred of duties. He is not alone. He is flanked by 4 other priests, their bodies painted with symbolic colors. They represent the 4 cardinal directions. It is their job to hold the offering down upon the stone, 1 priest for each limb. A 5th priest, the fire priest, stands ready with a ceremonial plate, upon which the final offering will be placed. The captive is laid back upon the stone. His body arches perfectly over its curved surface. The drums stop. A profound, ringing silence falls over the entire city. The only sound is the high, thin mountain wind whipping around the top of the pyramid. The high priest raises his instrument. It is not a crude axe. It is a ceremonial flint or obsidian knife, its handle intricately decorated with turquoise and shell mosaics. It is a work of art, a sacred tool for a sacred job. In one swift, practiced motion, a motion he has trained for his entire life, the priest makes his incision. The crowd below lets out a collective, sighing gasp. It is not a sound of horror. It is a sound of release, of awe, of profound religious catharsis. The sun has been fed. The world is safe for another day. The crowd in the plaza begins to chant, a low, rhythmic hum of gratitude. The drums start up again, a faster, more celebratory beat. A great feast will now begin throughout the city. The cosmic bargain has been upheld, and the soul of the Tlaxcalan warrior, now free of its earthly vessel, begins its glorious 4-year journey as a companion of the sun. The drums have faded. The great feast that followed the ceremony is now just a pleasant memory, the lingering scent of roasted meats and sweet pulque on the evening air. The plaza is quiet, almost empty, save for a few priests performing their nightly purification rituals. The cosmic crisis has been averted. The sun will rise. But now, in the quiet aftermath, a different, more practical set of questions begins to surface in your mind. You've witnessed the poetry, the spirituality, the terrible beauty of it all. But your 21st century brain, a brain raised on spreadsheets and supply chains, can't help but start to wonder about the administration. Cosmic maintenance is one thing, but earthly administration is another. And the sheer logistics of what you have just witnessed are staggering to contemplate. This wasn't a one-time event. The Aztec calendar was a relentless cycle of ceremony, There were 18 months in the sacred year, each about 20 days long, and almost every single one had a major festival that required offerings. This was a system in constant motion, a divine bureaucracy with a terrifyingly high demand for its key resource. And this is where the great historical argument begins, a debate that echoes in the quiet halls of universities centuries from now. It revolves around a simple, unanswerable question: what was the true scale of all this? The Spanish conquistadors, when they wrote their chronicles, described numbers that are almost impossible to believe. They wrote of the rededication of the Great Temple in the 1482, claiming that over 4 days tens of thousands of captives were sacrificed. They painted a picture of a constant, industrial-scale operation. For centuries these numbers were largely accepted, but modern historians, archaeologists, and demographers have raised their hands with a polite but firm, "Hang on a moment." They have started to do the math, and the math is tricky. Could the flower wars, which were essentially limited, ritualized skirmishes, really provide that many high-ranking captives? To sacrifice 20,000 people, you would need to capture them first, and feeding 20,000 unwilling honored guests in the heart of your capital city. So the great debate rages. On one side, you have those who believe the Spanish accounts were more or less accurate. They argue that the Aztec Empire was powerful enough, and its control systems efficient enough to manage this incredible scale. On the other side, you have scholars who argue the numbers were a wild exaggeration. They suggest the Spanish had a vested interest in painting the Aztecs as bloodthirsty savages. It provided a moral justification for their own brutal conquest. They might argue that the true number for a great festival was in the hundreds, not the tens of thousands, still a terrifying number, but one that is at least logistically plausible. The archaeological evidence, like the famous skull racks, is horrifying, but it's difficult to date the skulls precisely enough to confirm the numbers for a single event. The truth, as it so often does, is probably lost somewhere in the middle. But even if we take the most conservative estimates, the system required a level of organization that is breathtaking. Imagine the priestly orders not as mystical dreamers, but as a class of hyper-efficient event planners and supply chain managers. They had to keep meticulous records, the codices the scribes painted on the battlefield. They had to know which captive came from which city, his rank, the god he was destined for, and the festival at which he would meet his end. There must have been a whole department of divine logistics, a bureaucracy dedicated to the procurement and processing of offerings. The flower war wasn't just a sacred tradition, it was the solution to a massive administrative problem. A war of conquest is messy. You get whatever captives you happen to get. But a flower war is predictable. It's a scheduled, reliable method for acquiring the specific type of high-quality raw material the state religion demanded. It allowed the priests to forecast their supply and plan their ritual calendar accordingly. It is a strange and unsettling thought that this deeply spiritual, poetic, and beautiful conception of a flower war was also, at its heart, a ruthlessly practical system of resource management, designed to keep a celestial machine, and an earthly empire running on a precise and demanding schedule. You find yourself standing in one of the city's many gardens, away from the monumental stone of the temples. Here, among the delicate blossoms of hibiscus and the intoxicating scent of tuberoses, you can finally reflect on that strange, poetic name. A flower war. Xochiatl. Why a flower? Why cloak this deadly, ritualized practice in the language of such delicate beauty? You reach out and touch the petal of a dahlia, a flower first cultivated by your people. It's soft, vibrant, and perfect, but you know that in a few days, its bloom will fade, its petals will wither, and it will fall back to the earth. The connection begins to make sense. In the poetry of your culture, flowers are the ultimate symbol of the transient, fleeting nature of life itself. Life on earth is beautiful, precious, and tragically short. One of your most famous poet kings, Nezahualcóyotl, wrote verses that are memorized by every educated person in your society. Is it true that one lives on earth, not forever on earth, only a little while here? Be it jade, it shatters. Be it gold, it breaks. Be it a quetzal feather, it tears apart, only a little while here. This is the philosophical core of your world. Life is a brief, beautiful loan from the gods. to cling to it, to die of old age, huddled and afraid, that is to bloom as brightly as possible. And then, at the peak of your beauty, to be offered back to the source of all life. A warrior in his prime, resplendent in his feathered regalia, is the ultimate human flower. The battlefield is his garden. And to be chosen for the gods is to be plucked at the moment of perfect, glorious bloom. This metaphor is everywhere. The songs the warriors sing before battle are called flower songs. The sacred hymns of the temple are filled with floral imagery. The blood of a sacrificed warrior is not just blood, it is referred to poetically as divine nectar or precious flower water. The heart itself is the most precious flower of the human body. This isn't just a pretty way of talking. It's a deeply ingrained way of seeing the world that softens the edges of a brutal reality. It transforms an act of violence into an act of aesthetic and religious significance. A warrior is not killed, his flower is harvested. He is not a victim, he is a beautiful offering. And there's another layer to it. Your people are master botanists and horticulturists. You understand that for a plant to be strong, it sometimes needs to be pruned. For a garden to flourish, some flowers must be culled to allow the others to grow. The flower war, in a way, is the cosmic gardening of humanity. The strongest, most beautiful flowers are chosen to ensure the health of the entire garden, the entire universe. This poetic worldview is also, of course, a powerful to love the state. It creates a culture where the individual is willing to subordinate his own life to the needs of the collective, and to the even greater needs of the cosmic order. It encourages a specific kind of bravery, a fatalistic courage that makes your warriors so formidable. They do not fear death because death in battle or on the stone is not automation. The very name flower war is a masterpiece of cultural engineering. It frames the entire institution in a way that is honorable, beautiful, and necessary. It makes the unthinkable not only thinkable but desirable. It's a concept that is very difficult for outsiders to grasp, and historians of the future will endlessly debate whether it was a genuine spiritual belief or a sophisticated form of propaganda. The answer, as is so often the case with your world, is that it was both. The beauty of the metaphor was what made the reality of the practice possible. You look at the dahlia in your hand. Its life is short, but its beauty is absolute. For a brief moment you understand. You see the warrior, the battle, the pyramid, and the sun not as separate things, but as the different parts of a single complex and terrifyingly beautiful flower, blooming for just a moment in the great garden of time. For a long time, the rhythm of your world is unbroken. The seasons turn, the festivals are celebrated, the flower wars are fought, and the sun continues to rise. The arrangement works. The great cosmic machine, oiled by the precious water of sacrifice, continues to function. The empire is stable, powerful, and eternal. Or so it seemed. The first reports are strange, easy to dismiss. They come from the hot, humid coastal lowlands, far from your high-altitude city. Fishermen and local tribute collectors send messages, carried by swift runners, that speak of impossible things. They talk of floating mountains or great houses moving on the water, appearing on the horizon where there should only be the sea. The priests consult their sacred books. The old prophecies are full of strange and worrying omens. The emperor, Moctezuma II, a deeply pious and contemplative man, is troubled. He sends messengers to the coast with gifts and with warnings, to see what these strange apparitions might be. For a while, the floating mountains disappear, and a nervous quiet returns. But then, they come back. You are there in your mind's eye on a sandy beach, the humid air thick and heavy. You see them. They are not mountains. They are ships, but on a scale you have never seen, with great white sails that look like clouds snared by wooden towers. From these floating structures, smaller boats are lowered, and they row towards the shore. And then you see the men. They are strange. Their skin is unnaturally pale, their hair is the color of the sun, or the color of corn silk. Many of them have thick, matted hair growing on their faces, like the fur of an animal. They are wrapped not in shining metal. They wear metal pots on their heads, they smell wrong, they have the sharp, acrid scent of unwashed bodies, of stale sweat, and of a strange, metallic tang. With them, They bring animals you have never seen. There are huge, snorting beasts that they sit upon, creatures that are less like the gentle deer of your forests, and more like nightmares come to life. For a moment, you wonder if the man and the beast are one creature, a terrifying centaur-like being from a dark myth. These are, of course, horses. And then you hear the sound. One of the strangers points a long metal stick. There is a deafening crack, a sound louder than any thunderclap, and a puff of acrid, grey smoke. Far down the beach, a piece of driftwood explodes into splinters. This is the sound of a gun, a weapon that kills with invisible magic from a great distance. When the first battle occurs, it is a scene of profound, horrifying confusion. Your warriors, dressed in their glorious jaguar pelts and eagle feathers, advance to challenge the strangers to honorable, one-on-one combat. They expect the poetic taunts, the circling, the testing of skill. The metal men do not understand. They do not fight like men. They stand in a tight, ugly line, shoulder to shoulder. They point their magic sticks and unleash a volley of thunder and smoke. Warriors in the front rank, men who have never been touched in a dozen flower wars, fall down with small, neat holes in their cotton armor, their lives extinguished before they can even raise their TLS. The men on the nightmare beasts charge. They are a terrifying wave of stumping hooves and flashing metal. Their long, thin swords are not made of brittle obsidian. They are made of steel. They do not break. They are designed to pierce, to stab, to kill quickly and efficiently. This is not a flower war. There is no art to it. There is no honor. The strangers are not trying to capture anyone. They are not harvesting flowers for their gods. They are killing. Indiscriminately. Efficiently. Their goal is not the preservation of a worthy opponent, but the total annihilation of everyone in their path. They are fighting a war of fire and water, but with a cold, terrifying brutality that you have never imagined. And here the great, tragic debate for the historians of the future will be born. How did a few hundred of these strange metal men manage to challenge an empire of millions? The answers are complex disease, political alliances with your enemies like the Tlaxcala NS, superior weaponry. But one of the most debated factors is your own way of war. Did your lifetime of training for the Zokiotobol, the art of capturing, not killing, leave you tactically unprepared for an enemy who played by no rules you recognized? Did your warriors hesitate, trying to take captives when they should have been fighting for their lives? It's a question that will never be fully answered. A new scent has come to your land. It is not the scent of flowers or of holy incense. It is the smell of gunpowder and steel. A new kind of warrior is here, and he does not care about your gods. The arrival of these men in metal throws your world into a state of profound ontological shock. It's not just a military crisis, it's a spiritual one. Every aspect of your highly structured, ritualized system of warfare is suddenly rendered obsolete, even counterproductive. The very strengths that made your armies so dominant in their own world have become crippling weaknesses in this new, brutal context. You witness a skirmish. A small band of these Spaniards, as they call themselves, is ambushed by a much larger force of Jaguar and Eagle Knights. By the old rules, this should be an overwhelming victory. Your warriors are stronger, more numerous, and fighting on their home turf. They surge forward, their TLS raised, their war cries echoing through the jungle. Their goal, deeply ingrained by a lifetime of training, is to surround and capture the enemy leader, the man with the most elaborate metal hat and the biggest horse. But the Spaniards do not fight as individuals seeking honor. They fight as a single, monstrous organism. They form a tight square, a hedgehog of sharp steel pikes pointing outwards. Your warriors, accustomed to the open, dueling style of the flower war, cannot get close. To try and grab one man is to be impaled by the pikes of his neighbors. Then the men with the thunder sticks, the ARQ busy arrest, do their work. They fire a volley, not aiming for a specific champion, but simply blasting into the dense ranks of your charging warriors. The lead balls tear through the quilted cotton armor that was so effective against obsidian. Men fall, their beautiful feather suits stained with a sudden, shocking crimson. There is no poetry in this death. It is ugly, anonymous, and appallingly efficient. Your warrior's greatest skill, the art of capturing an enemy alive, is now a fatal handicap. You see a veteran Eagle Knight, a hero of a dozen flower wars, finally break through the pike wall. He confronts a Spanish soldier. The Spaniard is clumsy, slow, and by your standards, a terrible fighter. The Eagle Knight easily disarms him, knocking his steel sword aside. In that moment, the Eagle Knight's training takes over. Instinctively tries to grab him, to take him as a captive. In that split second of hesitation, another Spaniard, seeing his comrade in trouble, steps in and runs the Eagle Knight through from the side with his sword. The great warrior, a man who could have killed his opponent twice over, collapses. He has died because he fought with honor against an enemy who had none. He followed the sacred rules of the garden, while the strangers brought the cold, hard logic of the abattoir. This scene is repeated over and over. The Macuay Hotel, so perfectly designed to wound and disable, shatters against the Spaniard's steel helmets and breastplates. The brilliant feather banners, designed to make your champions visible in glorious targets, now simply make them the first to be shot by the enemy's marksman. The entire aesthetic of your warfare, its beauty and its glory, is turned against you. The political fallout is just as devastating. Your empire is a triple alliance, a coalition of city-states held together by a combination of forced trade and shared ritual. Many of the cities you dominate resent your power. They pay you tribute, and you take their finest young men for your flower wars. Now they see these strange new arrivals as a potential liberator. The Spaniards, led by their cunning and ruthless commander Hernan Cortes, are brilliant at exploiting these political fault lines. They quickly realize that your favorite enemies, the Tlaxcalaenes, harbor a deep and bitter hatred for you. After a few brutal battles to prove their strength, the Spaniards forge an alliance with Tlaxcala. Suddenly, your perpetual sparring partner has teamed up with a monster, the Tlaxcalaenes, who know your tactics, your strategies, and the layout of your lands, become the Spaniards' most crucial allies. The flower wars, which were meant to keep Tlaxcala in a state of honorable subjugation, have ironically created the very allies your new enemy needs to destroy you. The system has backfired in the most catastrophic way imaginable. The debate rages in Moctezuma's court. Are these strangers gods, as some of the prophecies seem to suggest? Are they divine messengers, their arrival a sign that the fifth sun is coming to its prophesied violent end? Or are they simply a new kind of barbarian, one that must be crushed without ceremony? Your society, so rigid and so certain of its place in the cosmos, has no category for what is happening. You are facing a problem that your entire worldview is ill-equipped to even understand, let alone solve. The beautiful, deadly, and highly ordered system of the flower war is crumbling in the face of a chaotic, brutal, and terrifyingly pragmatic new way of fighting. The end comes with a speed and ferocity that is almost incomprehensible. The city on the water, Tenochtitlan, the place you have called home, becomes a death trap. The Spaniards, with their tens of thousands of Tlaxcala and other native allies, lay siege to your island capital. They block the causeways, the great stone arteries that carry food and fresh water into the city. They build their own strange, clumsy boats armed with cannons, and they take control of the lake. The fighting is no longer in a sacred field. It is in your streets, on your rooftops, and in your canals. The war is no longer a ritual. It is a desperate, brutal struggle for survival. And in this final, terrible battle, you see the last, fading echoes of the flower war mentality. Even now, your warriors sometimes try to take captives. There are accounts from the Spanish side of soldiers being dragged from the causeways, pulled into canoes, and spirited away to the Temple Omea for a hasty, desperate sacrifice. For a fleeting moment, the old system asserts itself. The priests, even amidst the chaos, try to perform the rituals, to plead with Hytistoputic for a miracle. They believe if they can just make a worthy enough offering, the god will intervene and destroy these invaders. But no miracle comes. The Spaniards, for their part, are horrified and enraged by the capture of their comrades. It fuels their conviction that your people are demonic heathens who must be destroyed. For every Spaniard captured and sacrificed, they retaliate with overwhelming, indiscriminate force. They do not understand the cosmic bargain you are trying to uphold. They only see it as a monstrous cruelty. The final days of Tenetecton are a nightmare of starvation, thirst, and a strange new sickness, smallpox, that sweeps through the population, killing far more than any weapon. The city that was once a marvel of cleanliness becomes a charnel house. The canals are choked. The floating gardens are trampled and burned. In the end, the new, brutal way of war wins. The city falls. The Temple Omea, the great pyramid that was the center of your universe, is pulled down. Its sacred stones used to build the foundations of a new church for the stranger's pale, suffering God. The skull racks are burned. The sacred books, the codices that held the history and wisdom of your people, are gathered in great piles and set ablaze, their painted stories turning to ash and smoke. The memory of the flower war fades. To the conquerors, it is remembered only as proof of the Aztec savagery, a bizarre and bloody ritual that justified their own violence. They do not record the poetry, the honor, the intricate rules, or the profound cosmic belief that underpinned it all. They see only the final, bloody act, and they judge the entire civilization by it. And so our story ends. You are floating, once more, above the ruins. The brilliant colors of the warrior's feathers are gone, replaced by the drab grays and browns of rubble. The sound of the conch-shell rumpet is replaced by the solemn tolling of an iron bell. The scent of marigolds and copal has been scoured away by the smell of smoke and decay. The garden of war is dead. The flowers have all been trampled. A world has ended, and the sun, indifferent to the gods who were once its masters, continues to rise, all on its own. The great historical debate will continue, of course. Was the Aztec Empire a sophisticated civilization of poets, artists, and architects? Or was it a brutal regime built on a foundation of terror? The answer, lost in the smoke of the burning codices, is that it was both. It was a world where beauty and brutality were not opposites, but two sides of the same obsidian blade. And in the quiet of the ruins, you can almost hear the ghost of a poet king whispering on the wind, not forever on earth, only a little while here. The scent of the faded flower, the memory of a war fought for beauty, lingers for just a moment, and then it is gone. And now, the story is over, and you can feel the last of its threads gently dissolving into the quiet of your room. The vibrant colors of the feather suits, the deep red of the temple, the brilliant green of the quetzal plumes, they can all begin to soften now, fading into the comfortable darkness behind your eyelids. Let the sounds of that distant world, the rhythmic beat of the serpent's cawing drum, the high piercing cry of the bone flute, let them all become quieter and quieter, until they are just a faint echo, a distant memory that no longer requires any of your attention. You can feel a sense of release, a gentle letting go, as if you have been holding your breath for a very long time, and can now breathe out, slowly, completely, sinking a little deeper into the wonderful support beneath you, the great cosmic drama, the thirsty sun, the honorable warriors. Their story is told, their duty is done, and your only duty now is to rest. Your mind, like the still surface of Lake Texcoco at dawn, can become calm and clear. Any remaining thoughts can be like canoes, gliding slowly across that still water, moving from one shore to the other and disappearing into the soft mist of the horizon, leaving the lake peaceful and undisturbed. There is nothing left to understand. There is only this feeling, this gentle, heavy, peaceful feeling of drifting on a quiet current, towards a place of deep rest. The final page is turned. If your eyelids are still not heavy, another story might be the final lullaby you need. Sleep sweetly. Good night.